All right, what if I told you that the story of philosophy you learned in school is kind of wrong? I mean, what if its real origins aren't just in ancient Greece, but, well, everywhere? And all at once? In this explainer, we're going to dig into this incredible hidden history. It's a global revolution of thought that might just change the way you see, well, everything.
So let's just jump right in with a pretty simple question. Who invented philosophy? Seriously, take a second. What names pop into your head?
I'm willing to bet you thought of the ancient Greeks, right? Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, the big three. And look, you're not wrong. That's the standard answer. It's what we all get taught. It's this neat and tidy story that says rational thought was basically born in Athens. But what if that's just one chapter in a much, much bigger book? What if, at pretty much the same time in history, people all over the planet started asking the exact same big questions? I'm not talking about a relay race where one culture passes the torch to the next. I'm talking about a simultaneous global explosion of new ideas. That is the story we're going to get into.
So, to get to the bottom of this, our first stop isn't Greece. Nope, we're actually going back even further, to ancient Egypt. This is where we can find some of the oldest, deepest roots of ethical and cosmic thought.
The key idea here, the one you have to understand, is something called Maat. Now, you might see Maat depicted as a goddess with a feather, but she was so much more than that. Think of her as the fundamental operating system for the entire universe. She was this incredibly sophisticated philosophical concept that embodied truth, justice, balance, the cosmic order of everything. And everyone, I mean everyone, from the pharaoh down to the humblest farmer, had a personal duty to maintain it. And this wasn't just some abstract idea, you know. It was a real, practical guide for how to live your life. Get this. To make it to the afterlife, an Egyptian had to stand in front of 42 divine judges and recite the negative confessions, basically listing all the bad things they had not done. Things like, I have not lied, I have not stolen. It shows this amazingly early, superstructured system of moral philosophy. Your actions in this life had real, cosmic consequences. Okay, now let's hop over to ancient India, happening right around the same time. And what we find there is a society in the middle of a massive spiritual and intellectual shakeup. It's like this vibrant and honestly fiercely competitive marketplace, but for ideas. So on one side, you've got the establishment, Vedic Brahmanism. This was the old guard, built on ancient holy texts, the Vedas, and these really complex rituals that only a special class of priests could perform. But then you get the challengers, the Śramaṇa movements. These guys were the rebels, wandering ascetics who completely rejected the authority of the priests. Their whole thing was, truth isn't found in old books. It has to be discovered for yourself, through your own direct experience. And just look at how wild this marketplace of ideas got. You ask a simple question like, is there a soul? The Buddhists say, nope. The Jains say, absolutely. Then you ask, how do we know anything? Most groups are like, well, a mix of experience and logic. But then you get to these guys, the Carvaka, total outliers. For them, no soul, no afterlife. And the only way you can know something is true is if you can see it, hear it, touch it, directly perceive it with your senses. I mean, that is a seriously radical stance for the ancient world. Okay, we really need to zoom in on the Carvaka for a second, because their ideas are just mind-blowing for the time. These people were pure, hardcore materialists and skeptics. So here's what they said. Consciousness, it's not some mystical eternal soul. It's just something that happens. It emerges when the four elements of earth, water, fire, and air come together in just the right way to make a body. And when you die, that combination breaks apart, and consciousness just winks out. Gone. No gods, no karma, no heaven or hell. Just a universe made of atoms. I mean, doesn't that sound incredibly modern? We're talking about something from over 2,500 years ago. And this led them to completely reject all religious authority. The best part is, we have this amazing quote that sums up their whole attitude, and it was written down by their opponents. They basically said that the people who wrote the holy Vedic texts were just a bunch of confidence tricksters. They saw scripture not as some divine truth, but as a clever story made up to control the population. Ouch. All right, so while all that is going down in India, let's head over to ancient Persia. At pretty much the exact same time, a prophet named Zoroaster comes along and completely reframes the entire universe as this epic, ethical battle. Zoroaster's big idea was this: the universe is a battlefield,
On one side, you have Ahura Mazda, who represents absolute good, truth, and order. And on the other, you have Angra Mainyu, the force of pure evil, lies, and chaos. And the key thing to get here is that this wasn't just another story about gods fighting demons. It was a new kind of philosophical idea that the entire cosmos is defined by this war between abstract principles, between truth and falsehood itself.
And here's where we come in. In this cosmic war, humanity isn't just watching from the sidelines. No, we are the frontline soldiers. The whole purpose of our lives is to actively fight on the side of good, for Ahura Mazda. And how do you do that? Well, your weapons are your ethical choices, and they followed this really simple but powerful code. Good thoughts, good words, and good deeds. Every single choice you make, no matter how small, is basically a vote for order, or a vote for chaos. Okay, so now that we have all this global context, from Egypt, India, and Persia, now we can go back to Greece. And you can see that their famous philosophical leap wasn't the beginning of the story. It was a really unique, incredibly powerful new chapter, but it wasn't page one.
The big innovation from the Greeks was this shift from what we call mythos to logos. Basically, they started moving away from explaining the world with stories about gods and goddesses. Thunder isn't a lightning bolt from Zeus anymore. Instead, they started looking for rational, natural explanations for how the world actually works.
And a perfect example of this is the philosopher Democritus and his theory of atomism. Does that sound familiar? It should. Just like the Karvaka we saw in India, he suggested that everything in the universe is made of these tiny, indivisible particles called atoms, just moving around in empty space. It was a completely materialistic explanation for reality, trying to understand the world from the ground up, with no need for gods or magic.
So let's take a step back. What does all of this mean? We've seen these incredible, world-changing philosophical breakthroughs in Egypt, India, Persia, and Greece. The fact that this was all happening at roughly the same time, that's not a coincidence. There's actually a name for this period. Historians call it the Axial Age. And when you look at a timeline like this, even if some of the exact dates are debated, you see this absolutely stunning pattern. In the span of just a few centuries, these revolutionary thinkers just pop up all across the ancient world. This wasn't just a few isolated bright sparks, it was like a global, synchronized awakening. And yeah, their answers were all over the map, right? From cosmic order in Egypt, to atomic materialism in India and Greece, to this grand ethical battle in Persia. But they were all part of the same fundamental human project. For what seems like the first time on a global scale, humanity was turning its gaze inward and asking those huge questions. What is real? How are we supposed to live? What's our purpose here? And that really leaves us with one final big question for you. All of these ancient thinkers, they earned their spot in history because they had the courage to challenge the most basic, core beliefs of their world. So it kind of makes you wonder, doesn't it? What are the core beliefs we all take for granted today that maybe, just maybe, we should be challenging?